She's got ribbons and paper, a cauldron of glue. With every creation, she's spooking the crew. The black cats purr and the witches all cheer for the magic she spins this time of year. Oh, Indiana Jones, you're the talk of the night, with your Halloween craft shining so bright. Bats and spiders and a ghostly delight. Indiana Jones keeps the season just right.
Channel, my spooky witchy little friends, and welcome to All Things Witchy, a can't sleep creations collaboration together with my friends Jody at Southern Seasons, Dawn of Shabby Meets Bling, and Monica of Up All Night DIY, and myself got together to create All Things Witchy for this Halloween. If this is your first time here, welcome to my channel and welcome to meeting my little magical black cat, Kudu, who can't help but try to be in the camera today and take over all of my crafting space. Somehow, she knows when I'm working on something witchy, she's always got to be a part of it. So here I am cutting out my pattern for my handmade patchwork witch's hat. Never done it before. Don't get excited. This is not going to be a quilted hat. No. We're not at that stage yet. Although I do have a lot of very crafty friends. And there's Luna. So Kuru and Luna are my magical kitty cats who will help me with this task today. And as you can see, Kuru's little paw is just giving me all the magic I need here because I'm creating the pattern myself and I have no idea what I'm doing, as per always. So here I'm cutting out the top of the witch hat, and this is muslin, I suppose, or canvas. I don't know. It's just some fabric that I had around the house, and I wanted to have just a stable fabric for all of my scrap fabrics. So this is where the idea sprung about. I have all of these scrap Halloween fabrics that I really can't do anything with, but I would hate to just throw them out. I also have a lot of these Dollar Tree, I guess, fat quarters you call them, and I just love them, and I haven't been able to use them. And there are so many fabrics that I would like to use and so many pieces. I just decided to create this patchwork type of hat as my project to incorporate all of these favorite fabrics that I've just been saving from one year to the next. Now, as I mentioned before, I am not a quilter, and if you are, gangbusters to you, because I cannot make heads or tail of how you guys are able to do everything so perfectly accurately. So I'm going to do the best I can with this patchwork quilt. Originally I was going to sew it, but time sped away from me as it usually does, and I decided to take a few shortcuts. So I hope you forgive me. I hope again you realize that this is not a quilt. However, if you wanted to create a quilted hat, imagine how incredible that would be, especially if you have old t-shirts or maybe even old costumes of your children and don't have the space to keep them all, but you would love to keep the memories of, your children's costumes beyond just having a picture of them, and maybe you've made these costumes yourself. So if you do have some fabrics that are just hanging around, or if you want to create this from scratch, you don't have to spend a lot of money. I think with 4 different fabrics that you get from the Dollar Tree, you can create your own patchwork hat, witch's hat, and I just love the way this one is coming together. Now, for a reference, if I were you see how I'm pinning everything to that muslin fabric. I should have used, how can I call it? I should have used fusible binding. I should have pinned it to fusible binding, then glued on or ironed on all of these patches to the fusible binding. And the other recommendation I would give you is before you start putting together your patches, I would iron all of your pieces. I did that afterwards, after the fact, but you should do that beforehand just to make it much neater for you. But this was so much fun to do. I literally enjoyed just putting together all these little pieces that I'd been saving from one thing to another. And I said, you know what? It's time that I use them all. And there's no better way. Now, you can also, these are leftovers from making things like pumpkins and making banners and, making raggedy bows and everything. So this is how I am putting everything together for our witchy collaboration today. Now, once I have all of my pins set up, of course, I'm going to iron out all the pieces just to make sure they're all lying down flat and there's nothing curled up or anything. Because the next step, I am going to use some fusible material, and that's going to help me fuse all of the fabric to the muslin that's in the background, just to stabilize it all together. And here you can see this is going to be the brim of my hat. And again, I don't have to make the inside perfect. I don't have to make anything perfect. It's my hat. I can wear it how I wish. But just so you can see how cool this pinwheel effect is when you're using scraps of different types of fabric. And I absolutely love how it's turning out so far. So once again, I'm just ironing everything, and now I'm going to start fusing everything to the muslin. And here is my fusing. This is heat and bond, and it's in strips, or it's like a tape. And you usually use this for hems, but for this, I'm going to use this for my project. I do have another fusible that I can use for the fabric. However, it's much thicker, and I wouldn't want to use that for the actual patches themselves, but for the just to stabilize the hat, the cone part of the hat and the brim of the hat. So here I'm just using that fusible tape, putting it onto the muslin and just making my way around the hat. Again, I would have used a full piece of this fusible fabric or this fusible material so it's easier. However, I didn't have it on hand, and I'm trying to use what I already have in my stash, and this is actually in my mother's stash, so it's been hanging around for a while and I have used it, but now I'm putting it to really good use with this project. I love that little cat with the pumpkin, the jack-o'-lantern, and the little spider. And here's the brim, and I'm doing the exact same thing. Now, there are some pieces of the fabrics that I'm actually using a fusible fabric glue to make it easier for me so that I don't have to go through and put fusible tape on everything, and it'll hold just as well. And you can use Eileen's tacky glue. Mod Podge has a fabric glue as well, and there are just so many different options that you can use. For the next step, this is where I'm using the heavy duty fusible bonding to my muslin fabric so that it stabilizes the fabric that is going to become the cone of my hat as well as the brim of my hat. Now I am sewing the under, I guess, the lining, or what you would see under the brim of my hat, and I'm just using a very fun black and white polka dot fabric. I decided to use this fabric because I didn't use it at all in the hat, and I just wanted to have some nice contrast, and I think it looks really cute and fun and whimsical. And this is definitely for a fun and whimsical witch. She's just a kooky, funny, sweet witch. This would be a wonderful witch's hat to wear to school if you're a teacher, or if you're a grandma, to wear outside while you're waiting for the trick-or-treaters, or just anyone, anywhere. It's just so cute. Now I'm turning the fabric inside out. Well, first I'm trying to measure to see how large I'm going to make the opening of my brim. Now here what I'm doing is I'm folding the brim of the hat because it's just a big old circle, and I'm going to cut, and yes, I got some wonderful actual sewing scissors or seamstress scissors. So I'm just going to cut some tabs, or these corners as you see here, because this is how I'm going to attach it to the hat part of the hat. To the hat part of the hat, does that make sense to you? The cone? Yes, so that's what I'm going to use to attach it to the cone. Now I'm going to pull it inside out so you can see all the fabric right side up. Remember, when you're sewing fabric, you always have to sew the right sides together so you have a seamless interaction between the two fabrics, as you can see here. And I absolutely love the way that polka dot just came out. Now I'm going around because now I have to close off that opening that I was able to pull everything inside out, and that's going to be really easy to do. But before I do that, I'm also going to add some wiring to the hat that's going to be in the brim of the hat so that I can just manipulate the brim of the hat as I wish, so that I can really make it look very, very cool. So here I'm just closing off that hole, as you can see there, and it looks so nice, especially with that interfacing. That's what it's called, the interfacing that I added that would stabilize the fabric. And not only that, but give it a little more of a stiffer kind of brim so that I can move it as I wish and style it as I wish. And now I'll sew the one side of my witch cone, or the part of the hat that's the cone part of the hat. And again, you can see that it's all white on the inside because that is the interfacing that is going to stabilize the fabric and make it a little stiffer. Now, I didn't put interfacing at the very top corner of the hat because I want it to be a little slouchy. You know, I love that little slouch that witches hats have nowadays. Now here's the brim of the hat, and I really like the way it turned out. And you know, adding just gluing down the fabrics really helped also to stabilize it. Now if you would like to, you can just do everything sewing, but I did a combination of sewing and gluing because I thought it was easier. Now I'm going to be gluing the brim of the hat to the cone of the hat using some hot glue. It would have been a little more difficult for me to attach the brim to the hat by sewing it, simply because it's really a difficult process, but you can do that if you'd like, if you're very experienced. And I am putting a little bit of wire that's going to go around the brim just to make it easier for me to shape the brim of the hat as I wish. So now I'm going around and gluing down the tabs into the hat. Remember those tabs that I created with the scissor, just to be able to attach it to the brim, to the top of the hat. And here I'm just measuring everything again to make sure. And somehow I always end up making hats that are a little too tall, but that's okay because once I slouch it, it'll be just fine. So I'm just going to go around and glue the brim of the hat to the top of the hat as best as I can. And now my hat is almost complete. I'm going to add a few embellishments, although I'm not going to add too much except for maybe a bow so that you don't see the seam between the top of the hat and the brim of the hat. But I will show you in the final reveal how cute this hat is and how comfortable as well. I think Halloween and thrifting go hand in hand. Check out this beautiful book box that I found at the thrift store up in Lakeland when I was on vacation in the summer. And it only cost like $2 or $3. It's amazing. I also found this beautiful little boot, which I think is perfect for a little witch shoe, and this lovely doll head vase, which I'm also going to convert into a little witch. Now you know how much I love the vintage assemblages, especially little doll head vases. And I usually use a tree, but for some reason that just wasn't going into my vision for this. Now Luke is over here serenading Luna as she is getting sleepy. I thought it was so sweet that he came by to serenade Luna. And all I'm doing here is I took out the original silk ribbon. I did not throw it out. The original silk ribbon for this doll head vase. I'm going to put it inside the doll head vase itself to keep it with the vase so that I can change out the ribbons afterwards. But I'm using this wonderful orange and black striped ribbon that I actually had gotten at Hobby Lobby a few years ago. I love being able to use everything that I already have on hand. And then all I'm going to do is add a little styrofoam so that I can decorate the inside of the hat as beautifully as the outside. Now originally I thought I was going to use one of these Christmas trees, but then I opted to create an actual witch's hat for this lovely doll's head vase. I had one of these miniature styrofoam trees from Hobby Lobby last year, got it at 90% off. Remember to buy your crafting supplies during the Christmas clearance this year. And I do have this satin pillowcase that I've used in the past, and I'm just going to cover that styrofoam cone with the satin pillowcase to create my witch's hat. For this example, I am using the satin, but you can also use paper if you wish. You can use anything you like, but I really think that this satin is a perfect complement to this doll head's vase. And all I'm doing is using a little hot glue to secure the styrofoam within the fabric, and it's gonna turn out so cute. Once the witch's hat is securely placed within the doll's head vase, now I'm going to add some embellishments. Now I wanted to keep it simple simply because, yes, because I just thought it was so pretty as it is. It didn't need any more decoration. I am using a ribbon to kind of conceal the seam between the top of the hat and the bottom of the hat, which is this beautiful doll's head vase, and add a ribbon and a few other fun and kooky things to decorate this little witch's hat. But I think she turned out so spectacular. I could understand why they would find a movie like Bewitched, especially during this time period when this little doll's head vase was so popular. It's understandable with all this magic. We can understand why one black little cat would be so pooped and tired. But she's ready for me to show off the next couple of projects. And the next one is going to be this lovely boot that I found up in Lakeland. I think it came out to $1.99, and I think it's made of some kind of aluminum. But it is such a nice little boot, but I thought it would be so much cuter if I just added a little decor to make it seem like a primitive witch boot. Now, using a small styrofoam ball or a medium-sized styrofoam ball that I'm going to place into the boot, now I'm just going to start decorating this and using it as a vase, but with a very fall and primitive decor vibe, which is my decoration vibe this year. But you can also use it for glam. You can use it for retro vintage is absolutely perfect. And of course, anything witchy, you always need a witchy boot in your decor. Here, I'm just going to pin some raffia that I had in my stash, and I thought that was a nice little breakup from the top, which will be more rustic, to the bottom perfectly made black boot. For the actual arrangement, I'm going to use some real dried flowers as well as some of my fake flowers and the fake florals that I usually get at the Dollar Tree. Speaking of which, if you're enjoying this so far, please remember to like, share, and subscribe, and come back for some more spooky, fun inspiration this Halloween and fall season. Well, with that commercial out of the way, let's just talk about all the things I'm going to be adding to this to really make it primitive. I have some of those branches that you saw there that were with orange leaves, and now I'm adding a little bit of cheesecloth that I had dyed previously for another project. I had some other things that I wanted to add to it, but I just didn't want to overload this small little vase. And we're just getting together and putting everything in as we like. Now, originally I had also thought of putting those white pumpkins and the orange pumpkins, but I really wanted to keep this very organic and very natural, like as if a witch had left a boot out on her porch and it was filled with flowers. Another thrift store find, I found this beautiful portrait of this lady, and I thought, oh my gosh, she just looks so magical. I wasn't going to cut it at first, but then I realized it's modern photo paper, so I don't know whose relative this is. And if you know this person, I do apologize. I mean nothing, no insult, but I just felt she was so ethereal, so magical, that I wanted to add her to my witchy decor. And look at it, it's so easy and so simple, and look at her, there she is. What's witch decor without some potion bottles? Well, that's what I'm doing here. I had this Maker's Mark empty whiskey bottle, and I just wanted to cover up the lettering on the front because I was going to decoupage on top. And sometimes when the lettering is really dark, you can actually see it through the papers, through some papers if they're not like heavy cardstock paper, which mine isn't. So I'm also taking this bottle of olive oil, which I also thought would look as very cute as a potion bottle. Now I'm just adding a little bit of Mod Podge, and I'm just using matte Mod Podge. I used water to just fray the edges of this beautiful paper that I had, and I just had this in my stash, and I love how the red carnation or the red rose matches the red of that Maker's Mark bottle top. I think it's fantastic. I left the writing on the side because it really didn't bother me much. But now let's work on my olive bottle. Same thing. Used a little bit of Mod Podge, and yes, I am using my iron simply because I don't want to have any wrinkles, especially if this is going to become a potion bottle I can use for years and years to come. Now here's another bottle that I found at the Dollar Tree, and not the Dollar Tree, I'm sorry, at Goodwill, and I think it was only 50 cents. I had this wonderful sticker and I love the colors once again with the purples and the pinks, and I decided to add some magical elixir. I'm using vegetable glycerin, believe it or not. That's what makes all those wonderful magical swirls. So I'm using that and some purple dye, and I'm also using a little bit of purple mica powder that I usually use for my resin. You can also use it in this glycerin. Now in the bottle I already have some water which I've dyed with a little bit of purple dye, and now I'm adding this vegetable glycerin, and watch as the magic takes place. I did add a little more water to this just so you can see the swirls a little better, and I just love the way that looks. I did darken the water as well with a little bit of black dye, and I think it just makes it so magical. I did the same with the larger bottle, but I used red and gold in that one. So here you can see the swirls a lot better with this darker purple color. The final reveal for you right now.
Pumpkins on the porch, glowing gold. Raggedy ghosts sway, shiver in the cold. Leaves whisper secrets to the biting air. A witch hat's tossed, forgotten, near the rocking chair. Oh, pumpkins and raggedy ghosts, witch hats by the fire, where shadows boast, black cats cozy, curled up tight. Halloween's here, under the moon's pale light. Lanterns flicker, dancing low. Jack-o'-lantern grins, a mischievous glow. The wind hums tunes, a spectral choir, while witch hats gather round the fire. And do you hear the footsteps?
Well, I think my friends are absolutely magical and enchanting, including Dawn of Shabby Meets Bling, Jody at Southern Seasons, and Monica of Up All Night DIY, as well as all of our friends that have joined us on our Can't Sleep Creations collaborations, celebrating all things Halloween and witchy. Thanks again for stopping by, and if you enjoyed this, please remember to like, share, and subscribe. But most importantly, remember, as always, stay safe, be kind, God bless each and every one of you, and remember to live the adventure. And I'll be seeing you again very soon with more Halloween fun.